Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Sachin from Team Decipher, and we are taking this moderates and extremist topic under the subject Indian modern history. So after learning about the birth of Congress and its theories, that whether it was born out of some safety valve theory or it was a genuine outcome or a platform to ventilate the Indian politicians or Indian masses uh, political ambitions. So we will further take in steps in order to understand that what sort of moderates and extremist leaders were there in Congress, what were their respective era, and what were the clashes they further faced in their journey of nationalism towards India's liberation. So, moving on, the Indian National Congress underwent three different phases or periods, which includes the moderate period, which actually extends from 1885 to 1905. Then this is moderate period. I'm sorry. Then the extremist period, which is from 1905 to 1920, and the third period was the Gandhian period. So the Congress saw the rise of Gandhi, and these periods went on from 1920 to 1947 till the independence of India. So let us first take the moderate period in the history of Indian National Congress. The moderate period of Indian National Congress, that is from 1885 to 1905, this was the phase which was referred to as moderate politics. Congress politics during the first 20 years of its history is roughly referred to as moderate politics. Congress at that time was hardly a full-fledged political party. In fact, it was more in the nature of an annual conference. And what this conference actually deliberated and adopted, it was the various resolutions and petitions which they sent to the British administration of those time, and they call it the critics used to call this annual conferences as 3 days tamashas. And after 3 days tamashas, this tamasha was simply disappeared. Okay, so its members were mostly part-time politicians who were successful professionals in their personal lives. A thoroughly anglicized upper class, its earlier membership we are talking about, the upper class who had very little time and commitment to the full-time politics. What we will do in this discussion, we will learn about the moderate phase, but before that we will learn about the moderate leaders. What purpose it will solve? Reason being, as the UPSC has changed the syllabus, so it asked the questions about the leaders of the Indian national movement of those times. If you are able to remember, in 2013 means as well, they asked about the contribution of Maulana Azad. So in order to fulfill that need to learn about these leaders, I would suggest you to learn about them simultaneously with the periods and the happenings which they were attached with. So it makes the learning little it's not boring. You do not need to cram the things, so it went smooth rather than learning them about in the separate manner. So we're talking about the moderate leaders. The leading figures during the first phase of the national movement were A.O. Hume, W.C. Banerjee, Surendranath Banerjee, Justice Ranade, Badruddin Tayyabji, Pandit Madan Mohan Walviya, Pherozshah Mehta for that matter. So we'll study a little about these leaders because, as I told you, UPSC syllabus has been changed and they are asking about it. So first of all, we'll talk about W.C. Banerjee. W.C. Banerjee was the first president of the Indian National Congress. ठीक है. He was the first Indian, in fact, to contest the election for the British House of Commons. I would rather recommend you to take a pen and paper to note down the facts I'm telling you, because they are quite handy for your prelims purpose as well, and for other PCS related examinations which are actually factual based examinations. So rather than me writing the whole details on this slide, that will take rather more time. So I'll just take down two or three more important points, rather than you take notes for yourself, so that you can revise it later on. So, as I told you, he was the first president of Indian National Congress. He was also the first Indian to contest the election for the British House of Commons, although he lost that election. Moreover, he was the president of Indian National Congress in which session? In 1892 as well. This session was held in Allahabad. So, he was the president of INC in 1985 and as well as in 1892. Let's talk about the other leader, the other stalwart of the Indian National Congress and moderate leaders. He was Pherozshah Mehta. So, Sir Pherozshah Mehta, he was a Parsi Indian political leader. He was an activist and a leading lawyer of Mumbai, who was knighted by the British government in India for his service to law. So, the title, the knighthood Sir, was provided him for his services rendered in the field of law. So, apart from it, they, in some provincial services examination like UPPCS or MPPCS, they ask quite sort of vague and ambiguity sort of questions, like who was called the Lion of Bombay. He was called the Lion of Bombay, Sir Pherozshah Mehta. So, moving on, he became the Municipal Commissioner of Bombay Municipality in 1873 and its president for 4 times. So, Mr. Mehta was also nominated to the Bombay Legislative Council in 1887, and in 1893 he was appointed as a member of Imperial Legislative Council. He was also chosen the president of Indian National Congress in 1890. It was for the first time in 1890 he was selected as a Indian National Congress president. And in fact, in 1910 he started a newspaper called Bombay Chronicle. So, a right way to remember some crucial facts about Mr. Mehta is he throughout his life was connected with Bombay, Lion of Bombay, selected to the municipality of Bombay, and he was also started the newspaper as Bombay Chronicles. Okay, so this was the little information about Mr. Sir Pherozshah Mehta. Let's learn about one more stalwart of Indian National Congress, that was Justice Ranade. Justice Mahadev Govind Ranade was his full name. He was a distinguished Indian scholar, social reformer, and author. Now, there is a long list behind his name which we can describe that the works done by him. For example, he was a founding member of the Indian National Congress and owned several designations as a member of Bombay Legislative Council, member of Finance Committee at the Centre, and judge of the Bombay High Court. That is why he was called Justice. He published books on Indian economics and Maratha history. He saw the need for the heavy industry for economic progress and believed in Western education as a vital element to the foundation of an Indian nation. With his friends Atmarang Panduram and Bal Mangesh Wagle and Vaman Abaji Modak, Mr. Ranade founded the Prarthana Samaj. Sorry, the spelling. Prarthana Samaj with Atmaram Pandurang and Bal Mangesh Wagale. So, this Prarthana Samaj was a Hindu movement inspired by Brahmo Samaj and espousing the principles of enlightened theism based on the ancient Vedas. So, Prarthana Samaj, apart from Prarthana Samaj, Ranade founded the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha as well. Pune Sarvajanik Sabha was also founded by Justice Ranade, and later on it was one of the originators of Indian National Congress, and he has been portrayed as an early adversary of politics of Bal Gangadhar Tilak and a mentor to Gopal Krishna Gokhale. देखिए गोपाल कृष्ण गोखले ने मेंटर किया गांधी जी को और जिन्ना को, माइंडेड जिन्ना को. इनफैक्ट इन 1912 जिन्ना सेड ही वांट टू बी बिकम लाइक गोखले जी, एंड इन टर्न गोखले जी को मेंटर किया था जस्टिस रानाडे ने, राइट. सो अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, रानाडे was a founder of social conference movement as well. Social conference movement. And this movement actually was about directing his social reform efforts against child marriage. So this movement was against child marriage. The shaving of widows' head, the heavy cost of marriages and other social functions, they all were the aims that these practices should be reformed, and that is why he started this movement of social conference movement. I know this is getting a little bored, but please do bear with me in this entire endeavor because this might be a boring part, but this is actually important for your examinations. So, he also advocated the widow remarriage as well and the female education. In fact, he was one of the founders of Widow Marriage Association in 1861. So, it was one other feather in his cap. Widow Marriage Association के भी ये फाउंडर रहे हैं and in 1861. So Mr. Ranade valued the India's history, having had a great interest in Shivaji and Bhakti movement. Mr. Ranade encouraged the acceptance of change, believing traditional social cultures, structures like the caste system should accommodate change, thereby preserving India's ancient heritage as such. Though Ranade criticized the superstitions and blind faith, he was conservative in his own life. Upon death of, I'm just narrating you the one of the incidents of his life. Upon death of one of his first wife, his reform-minded friends expected him to marry a widow, obviously because he was crusading again in favor of widow remarriage. However, he adhered to his family's wishes and married a child bride, Ramabai Ranade, whom he subsequently provided with an education. So after his death, she continued his social work and educational reform work. But you can see that a person may be a reformer, a person may be a free thinker, but when it comes to his own, so society and family pressure may make him to act according to the wishes of the conservative family members and all. Moving on, apart from these two great personalities, next one is Mr. Surendranath Banerjee. He founded the Indian National Association and he is also known as Rashtraguru. Like Mr. Mehta was known as the Lion of Punjab, Lion of Bombay, Mr. Banerjee was known as Rashtraguru. He cleared the Indian Civil Services examination in 1869 but was barred owing to a dispute over his exact age. Banerjee cleared the exams again in 87. Stubborn guy he was कि मैं आपने मेरे को अभी नहीं लिया but I'll again clear it in 1871, and he was posted as assistant magistrate in Sialhat. However, Surendranath Banerjee was dismissed soon from his job owing to the racial discrimination as it was prevalent at those times. So Banerjee went to England to protest this decision, but he was unsuccessful. So during his stay in England, which was almost at the time 1874 to 1875, the roughly time estimation I'm giving you, during this time period, during his stay at London, he studied the works of Edmund Burke and other liberal philosophers. These works guided him in his protest against the British. So he is known as, apart from Rashtraguru, as Indian Burke. Just note it down for your further references for the factual sort of questions. So in India, in 1879, he founded the Bengali. This was his newspaper, which he started. He also founded the Indian Association, and he obviously through this association he agitated for the political reforms. He convened the Indian National Conference in 1883, which merged with Indian National Congress in 1886. And he firmly opposed the partition of Bengal. Obviously, he was an important figure in Swadeshi movement, advocating goods manufactured in India against the foreign products. Banerjee supported the Morley-Minto reform, although in 1909 these reforms were introduced. So he supported these reforms, which were resented and ridiculed as the insufficient and meaningless by the vast majority of Indian public and the nationalist politicians. But Banerjee was in support of these reforms. Banerjee was a critique of the proposed method of civil disobedience advocated by Mahatma Gandhi. This was it from Surendranath Banerjee. Let's move for another leader, and that is G. Subramanya Aiyar, the Hindu के founder. Please, we pray you, Mr. Aiyar. हिंदू के प्राइजेस बहुत ज़्यादा हो गए हैं. दिल्ली में 8 रुपये का मिलने लगा है. प्लीज़ ब्रिंग द प्राइजेस डाउन. वी नो demand supply rule also applies for the newspaper as well, but please have little mercy for the UPSC students. Well, nevertheless, jokes apart, he was a leading Indian journalist, social reformer, freedom fighter. He founded Hindu, obviously, and he preached the nationalism through Madras Mahajan Sabha. Madras Mahajan Sabha was also founded by him. And one more organization he founded, that was Swadesh Mitran. He was one of the 72 delegates presented at the Bombay conference at Tejpal Sanskrit College on 12th December 1885, which resulted into the founding of Indian National Congress. Subramanya Aiyar campaigned vehemently for the reforms in Hindu society. He supported widow remarriage, and he desired to abolish untouchability and child marriages. Mr. Aiyar also arranged for the remarriages of his own widowed daughter, for which he was socially boycotted. That was the irony. The next one in our list is the Grand Old Man of India, Dadabhai Naoroji. He, as I told you, known as the Grand Old Man of India, he was a Parsi intellectual, he was an educator, he was a cotton trader, he was a businessman, he was an early Indian political and social leader, and he was also a member of Parliament in United Kingdom in the House of Commons. House of Commons के में Britain में he was MP, member of Parliament, the Grand Old Man of India. कब से कब तक रहे ये? 1892 से 1895 तक British House of Commons के member of parliament रहे, and uh, he was the first Asian to be a British MP for that matter. In his political campaign and duties as an MP, he was assisted by none other than Muhammad Ali Jinnah. In 1867, Dadabhai Naoroji helped to establish East India Association, EIA, East India Association. It was one of the predecessors organization of the Indian National Congress with the aim of putting across the Indian point of view before the British public, because they thought that British public, British administration is as such not at all, uh, you know, aware about the real conditions of Indian public. So they want to put their opinion, put their view, put the real picture in front of British mass so that they can do justice for what they are known for. But this association soon won the support of eminent Englishmen and was able to exercise considerable influence in the British Parliament. He was also a member of Indian National Association, which I told you earlier, founded by Sir Surendranath Banerjee from Calcutta. This association was, founded a few years before the founding of Indian National Congress in Bombay, with the same objective and practices. The two groups later merged into INC, that is Indian National Congress, and Naoroji was elected president of Congress in which year? Which year? It was in 1886. He was elected as president. So in 1874, he became the Prime Minister of Baroda, and he was a member of Legislative Council of Bombay as well. Dadabhai Naoroji became the Indian representative in the Socialist Second International at their 1905 Congress in Amsterdam. Later, on 22nd August 1907, his assistant Mrs. Bhikaji Rustam Kama attended the International Socialist Congress in Stuttgart, Germany, where she described the devastating effects of famine that had struck the Indian subcontinent in her appeal for human rights, equality, and for autonomy from Great Britain. So, we will obviously read about Mrs. Kama later on in our lectures. So, but now we will be sticking to a grand old man of India. Naoroji also published Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. This was his famous work, Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. This work, this book was primarily focusing on the drain of wealth theory, which was popularized by Dadabhai Naoroji. This theory actually shows that how the colonial rule was draining the Indian wealth and benefiting the uh, English mass and politicians and businessmen over there. So it was the main reason, this work was the main reason behind the creation of Royal Commission on Indian Expenditure in 1896, in which he was also a member. This commission reviewed the financial burdens on India and, in some cases, came to the conclusion that those burdens were misplaced. In 1906, Dadabhai Naoroji was again elected as president of Indian National Congress. So once he became its president in 1886 and later on in 1906, for two times he was elected as president. Another leader in our list is Sri Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Gokhale ji became a member of Indian National Congress in 1889 as a protege of social reformer Mahadev Govind Ranade. As I told you, he was his mentor earlier. In 1899, Gokhale ji was elected to the Bombay Legislative Council. He was elected to the Council of Governor General of India. This is worth noting. He was the member of Council of India of Governor General of India. Okay. He was appointed as a non-officiating member, and he represented the Bombay province. He later served to the Imperial Legislative Council as well. Imperial Legislative Council, and he when this Imperial Legislative Council was, if you remember, it was expanded in 1909, then he became its member. He there obtained a reputation as extremely knowledgeable and contributed significantly to the annual budget debates. His annual budget debate speeches, I would suggest you should have a look. He was brilliant at them. And Gokhale developed so great a reputation among the British that he was invited to London to meet the Secretary of the State, Lord John Morley. Gokhale would help during his visit to shape the Parliamentary reforms introduced in 1909. In many ways, Tilak and Gokhale's early careers paralleled both were, देखिए, अगर इनको कंपेयर हम करके देखें, both were Chitpavan Brahmins. Though unlike Gokhale, Tilak was a wealthy Chitpavan Brahmin. Both attended Elphinstone College, both became mathematics professors, and both were important members of the Deccan Education Society. Deccan Education Society. Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Gopal Krishna Gokhale both were member of this Deccan Education Society. So when both become active in Congress, however, the divergence of their views concerning that how best to improve the lives of Indian, that became increasingly apparent. एक पूरब था, एक पश्चिम था, एक एक्सट्रीमिस्ट था, एक मॉडरेट था. Gokhale's first major confrontation with Bal Gangadhar Tilak centered around one of his pet issues, the Age of Consent Bill introduced by the British Imperial government in 1891 and 92. Gokhale and his followers, fellow liberal reformers, wishing to purge that what they saw as superstition and abuses in their native Hinduism, supported the consent bill to curb the child marriages abuses. Though the bill was not extreme, only raising the age of consent from 10 to 12, Bal Gangadhar Tilak took issue with it. He did not object per se to the idea of moving towards the elimination of child marriage, but rather to the idea of British interference with the Hindu tradition. He said that if we have to move into a reformative way to the Hindu religion, then it should be by the British interference. We Hindus, we nationals of India, we natives should move in that direction on our own. The bill, however, it was later on passed and it became law in the Bombay Presidency. In 1905, Gokhale became president of Indian National Congress. Just a year before, as I mentioned, Dadabhai Naoroji. Gokhale used his now considerable influence to undermine his long-time rival, Mr. Tilak. अब वो भी prominence में आ चुके हैं कांग्रेस में, तिलक को अब वो अपने इस influence के द्वारा undermine कर रहे हैं. He refused to support Tilak as a candidate for president of the Congress in 1906, and due to this reason, Dadabhai Naoroji was selected as the president of the 1906 Indian National Conference, and later on we'll also learn about how this will lead into the split of the Congress. But as for now, we will be sticking with Gopal Krishna Gokhale. So by now, Congress was split. As I am telling you, Gokhale and Tilak were the respective leaders of moderates and the extremists. So what happened? In 1905, when Gokhale was elected president of the Indian National Congress and was at the height of his political power, he founded the Servants of India Society. Servants India Society. Just note down these little facts and the story will keep moving on. So this society was specifically formed to further one of the causes dearest to him, that was expansion of Indian education and to train Indians to dedicate their lives to the cause of country. Gokhale wrote that the servants of India Society will train men and prepare them to devote their lives to the cause of country in a religious spirit, and will seek to promote by all constitutional means the national interest of the Indian people. Gokhale, as I told you earlier, was famously a mentor to Mahatma Gandhi in his formative years. In 1912, Gokhale visited South Africa at Gandhiji's invitation. Gandhiji invited him to visit South Africa. So, as a young barrister, Gandhiji returned from his struggle against the empire in South Africa and received personal guidance from Mr. Gokhale, including a knowledge and understanding of India and the issues that were confronting the common Indians at that time. Despite his deep respect for Gokhaleji, however, Gandhiji would reject Gokhale's faith in Western institutions as a means of achieving political reforms, and ultimately Gandhiji chose not to become a member of Gokhaleji. इसका जो इन्होंने एक Servants of India Society बनाई थी, he said, I won't be a member of Servants of India Society because I do not believe in the Western institutions as you believe in. So later on, many members of the societies was also against Gandhiji joining it. उन्होंने कहा कि ठीक है, गांधीजी तो अपोज उसको कर ही रहे थे, साथ के साथ जो ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्टिंग मेंबर्स थे सर्वेंट्स ऑफ इंडिया सोसाइटी के, दे वर आल्सो अपोजिंग गांधीजीज एंट्री इनटू द सर्वेंट्स ऑफ इंडिया सोसाइटी. खैर, जब गोखले जी की डेथ हो गई तो गांधीजी पहले चाहते थे कि एक बार मैं इसे ज्वाइन कर लूँ, बट लेटर ऑन ही विड्रू हिज एप्लीकेशन ड्यू टू द डिवीजन अमंग्स द मेंबर. कि Gandhiji thought that when the members are already divided, whether he should join or whether he should not, so he saw it that it is futile to join such an organization जहाँ पर कि उनकी एंट्री पर ही प्रश्न सूचक चिन्ह लगा हुआ है. So Gokhale ji was also role model in fact and mentor of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and he was the future founder of Pakistan. Muhammad Jinnah in 1912 said that I aspire to become a Muslim Gokhale. Gokhale ji died on 19 February 1915 at an early age of only 49. Bal Gangadhar Tilak, his lifelong political opponent, said at his funeral, "This diamond of India, this jewel of Maharashtra, this prince of workers is taking eternal rest on the funeral ground. Look at him and try to emulate him." Well, this is it for now. We'll be discussing about more leaders and the moderate phase of Indian National Congress. In next discussion, we'll be taking on the leaders like Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya and Badruddin Tayyabji. So till then, thank you for watching. Until then, stay connected and do visit our website, that is www.decipheris.com. Thank you and bye-bye.